Welcome back to a special edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, and I continue my conversation with Dr. Rick Spinrad, the administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, commonly referred to as NOAA. Dr. Spinrad, welcome back to Alaska.
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here.
What excites you most about leading NOAA?
That's an easy one, Peter. Saving the world. I mean, it sounds trite, right? But when you look at the NOAA mission, we talk about service, science, and stewardship. I like to think about our mission as being about lives, livelihoods, and lifestyles. So everything we do in the weather, in the ocean, in fisheries, in climate is really aimed at protecting people, helping build new economies, and basically making our lives better. What about that mission is not exciting? So I actually came out of retirement for this appointment because I was so excited about contributing to that incredible mission. And I really feel that if we do our job right, we will make the lives of every American better.
And can you share with our viewers, because they know the overarching NOAA term, but they don't know necessarily what agencies are involved with them. I think it'd be helpful for them to understand it's beyond, say, just like the National Weather Service, which is what I am part of.
That's right, and that's a very typical kind of reaction. So I travel all over the country. Some parts of the country, people know us for the National Marine Fisheries Service, where we manage sustainably the commercially viable stocks of fisheries. As you might imagine, with 40,000 miles of coastline here in this state, fisheries is a big part of our business. The Weather Service you mentioned. We also operate the National Ocean Service, which provides all of your navigational charts. So every person who goes out on the water here in Alaska is relying on our products, not just to see the depth of the water, but also to get the predictions of waves and currents and winds offshore. And to do that, we have a satellite and shipboard and aviation community. So we operate 16 satellites, 15 ships, and 9 aircraft. We have our own Air Force and our own Navy. And then on top of that, we have a uniformed service. We have 321 NOAA Corps officers that fly our planes, drive our ships. So it's a really broad remit. I like to think of our responsibility as being the key players for environmental intelligence for the American public and American industry and American communities.
Yeah, I was going to say, not only say people think of the Weather Service mainly as issuing forecasts and warnings, but again, NOAA as a whole, we are collecting scientific data that is essential for this country. How does that, how is that applied? Because people have to understand this goes to policy and other things for this nation.
Absolutely. So you think about how we make decisions about fishing, about agriculture, about energy, about transportation. Every decision associated with those sectors is based on understanding the environment, the weather, the climate, the ocean. And so we collect all the information, but then what do you do with it? You convert it to knowledge, and that's where all of our sophisticated models and prediction systems. So we run massive computational programs. We collect all the data. People around the country see our radars, they might see our balloon launches, they might see our airplanes, they know about our satellites, because when you turn the TV on at night, you see that image of the Gulf of Alaska that came from a satellite, most likely, that we operate. So we bring all those data into very sophisticated models and say, okay, if this is what it looks like now, based on our understanding of physics and how the winds work and how the ocean works, what will it look like tomorrow, 5 days from now? And what do we think the general pattern will be in a few months? All of that requires a lot of very detailed scientific knowledge, but also collecting information. And I might add that what's become particularly important, and I think it's particularly relevant here in Alaska, is the application and co-development of products using traditional knowledge, of which there's a lot here in Alaska. So how can we work with local communities and say, hey, what do you understand about the way the ocean behaves when it looks like this? Can we build that information, that knowledge, into our forecast system? So it's really an exciting application of state-of-the-art technology as well as taking advantage of traditional technologies, if you will.
Well, ensuring service equity is another one of NOAA's strategic goals. Can you tell us what service equity means for people living in places like remote Alaska?
One of the challenges that I would say in the past was that we would provide products and services and basically just issue them in a broadcast manner to a broad array of the population. And we've realized, whether it's in the coastal communities of Alaska, some of the inland communities, or for that matter, inner cities in the lower 48, that there are products that need to be developed specific to the needs of these communities. So we are engaging actively in a process of co-development, talking with communities. For example, over the last year, throughout the country, we've conducted 8 what we call climate and equity roundtables, where we sat down, and one of those was here in Alaska, with those communities, with native tribes, and said, what are your needs? What are your requirements? What are your capabilities? And I'm proud to share with you that as a result of that, we've begun a number of products. We'll be putting about $250,000 here in Alaska into working with the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium to try to determine what the priority products are that are needed by exactly the communities you're talking about.
And not only that, I'm sure there will be a move to expand telecommunications capabilities, the infrastructure that is needed to get this information to people, especially in rural locations.
One of the exciting things about being in the Department of Commerce is that also in the department is the National Telecommunications Agency, the agency that's responsible for ensuring broadband connectivity throughout the country. And I know the head of NTIA was just here in the state last week, and so we rely on, whether it's FAA or NTIA, to ensure that we have the kind of communications connectivity, especially internet connectivity, to get these products out to communities no matter where they are. So I'm excited that many of the products that we're developing right now, which are difficult to deliver to remote communities, will be much easier to deliver because of these new technological capabilities for communications.
Well, that certainly sounds very promising. And finally, you have a distinguished career spanning 4 decades in science and public service. Can you briefly describe the requirements and opportunities that lie ahead for Alaska high school and college students who may consider a career with NOAA?
Well, first of all, it always shocks me when somebody says I've got a career of over 4 decades. I'd still feel like a graduate student, but that's my enthusiasm for the position and the job that we do. And I would say, I think there's, when I was going to college and graduate school, we tended to focus on particular aspects of environmental science. I want to be a biologist, or I want to be a physical oceanographer, or a meteorologist. And what we're realizing now is it's an Earth system. That if you really want to understand what's going on, you probably need a good foundation of education in the spectrum of physical, biological, geological sciences. The other thing I would say is I think it's really important to understand data sciences, not so much as becoming an IT technician, for example, but understanding how large volumes of data will be used to answer difficult questions. So some familiarity with building models, understanding how data are collected, is also an important component of the job. And the third thing I'd say is, and I'm a little biased in this regard, I was trained as a traditional kind of scientist, and my plan was to be an academic scientist. And then I realized it's so important to try to communicate what we're doing to impact policy, to help public understand the value of the science that we do, that I think every scientist should learn a little bit about the applications of their science. Doesn't mean that they have to get into the applications or become a politician, but they should spend a little bit of time understanding why the science is relevant to the world writ large. So that would be my guidance to young students right now.
Well, Dr. Spinrad, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you about the importance of these things happening with NOAA in Alaska. And I certainly thank you for your time and expertise. And those of you watching, thank you for joining us for this special edition of Alaska Weather Facts.